I want to share with you an approach I created to change habitual thinking that has been working really well for me and for some of my clients. First of all, what is a habitual thought? What's habitual thinking? Well, what I mean by that is recurring thoughts that we have about ourselves that aren't useful. Recently, I was working with a client who had hired me to grow his business and make more money, and one of the things that he said all the time is, "I don't really care about money." You can see just logically how that wouldn't be a useful idea to be carrying around in your head when you want to grow your business and make more money. I don't really care about money. It's a little bit of friction there, a little bit of an obstacle. So you don't want to have that thing habitually showing up. The thing is with habitual thoughts, they're not always obvious to us because the way we relate to habitual thoughts is we think that we're describing something that is. Where many times, most of the time we're describing a pattern that we've seen in our life, and so we think it's innocent, we think it's innocuous, but the truth is that description in the present moment is actually generative of future behaviors of the same kind. And so the first thing is knowing that, and the next thing is becoming aware of your descriptions as creations. And the best way that I've found to do that is through having my descriptions pointed out to me, especially the recurring ones. Other people can hear the things we say commonly more than we can. And so if we're in frequent, deep conversation with people about our life and the things that we say to ourselves are coming out because of the level of the conversation, we're going to get to learn more of our patterns. That's why I do what I do as a coach. It's why I have my own coaching and mentoring, so I can have my speaking reflected back to me in a way where I can see the patterns. And then the more that you are shown it, the more you can see it in your own listening to your own self. But of course, the first part is to see the habitual speaking that you have that you think is innocent, but is actually generative around things that you don't want in your life. So I got a client recently who was saying, I don't really care about money, while at the same time wanting to make more money. Not a useful pattern. Speaking of money, a friend of mine says frequently, I'm not a numbers guy, and I'm going to work on changing that. Great start, awareness, but here, let's talk about what you can do once you have the awareness. This is one of many methods, but it's one that I kind of just figured out and has worked really well for me. And where it came from is the practice of building habits in my life, like routine, things that I do every day. For example, every morning I read the Tao Te Ching, and I do it when I go into the bathroom. Maybe TMI there, but whatever. That's where I start my day. That's where I read the Tao. And so I call it, and I've called it since maybe in my 20s, piggybacking habits. If there's something that I do habitually every day, like brush my teeth, go to the bathroom, and there's something I want to start doing every day, then I just piggyback that thing onto it. I do that while I'm doing the other thing, or I do it right after it, or right before. Like every time before I put my toothbrush down, I have to pick up the floss to make sure that I floss my teeth too. Piggybacking. And once something becomes habitual, and you can piggyback something else on top of it. That works really well as a habit building technique. So when I was thinking about thought as habitual, I was thinking, what if instead of just trying to strike down and stop that bad habit of thinking, I could actually utilize that habitual thought, the one that shows up spontaneously, automatically, all the time, on its own, and I could link into it something, I could piggyback on top of that thought, also popularly called habit stacking, by the way, nowadays. But if I could piggyback onto that habitual thought something that transformed that thought from non-useful into something that was actually positive and useful. So I'll give you a couple examples. I'm going to check my notes here as I wrote some down. So some years ago, I had a client who had the recurring thought, and spoke it, I don't know. That's just a response to conversation and situations and questions, I don't know. And what we created was a continuation of the habitual thought, but deep down, really, I do know. And what I invited her to do was to, on a daily basis, intentionally take time to speak that as a mantra. I don't know, but deep down, really, I do know. I don't know, but deep down, really, I do know. I don't know, but deep down, really, I do know. And so by speaking that as a mantra, it was like when the next time the habitual thought showed up, I don't know, the brain continued the song, but deep down, really, I do know. And so it's like whatever non-useful habitual thought you have can be the first line to a song, and you can just teach yourself the rest of the lines, and the rest of the lines can make the whole meaning of the first line completely different. So let's another example. I had another client this week. Nobody gives a shit about the project that I'm working on. Nobody gives a shit. Not a useful idea when you want to grow your project and bring it out into the world. Nobody gives a shit. Instead of trying to stomp that down, bad habit, don't say that. It's like, nobody gives a shit except me. And that's enough. Because for her, like really connecting with it being for her is as enough is actually really powerful. And so it's not like wrong for nobody gives a shit. It's like, fine, nobody gives a shit except me, and that's enough. And now I feel really good. So every time I say it, I can end in a place that's high. And I don't have to start to, there's two cool things about this. I don't have to stomp out a bad habit, number one. And number two, it's a much quicker way to create a habitual thought because you're hooking a new thought into an existing habit of thinking. What's another example? Oh, I'm wrong would be a thought that I would have in conversations typically with my wife that would have me not feel good. And so with this one, it was like, I may be wrong. So that one's not just an addition. It's like, I'm just going to tweak this. And so it's like, when I can feel the I am wrong coming, I am wrong, I may be wrong, and that's okay. And I could go on. It's more of the song. I'm perfect, I'm loved, I am free, I'm connected. But the point is that that changing the speaking by adding stuff onto it, maybe doing a little tweak to it, because I am wrong, I may be wrong, and that's okay. I'm connected, I am loved, I am free. I am wrong, I may be wrong, and that's okay. I'm connected, I am loved, I am free. And so this idea that was habitual, that was limiting me, becomes the entry point into an idea that lifts me up. The new habit comes quickly. I don't have to stomp the old one out. It's like I'm smiling because it's just so much. I've found it so liberating as a tool. Let me give a couple other subtle examples. Now, another client I was working with where it wasn't even a reframe of the word by changing the language. It was like changing the tune of the song. So she had a thing that she said when she was judging herself, which was like, man, like as if like, man, I shouldn't have done that, right? But the word was man. And I also noticed there was another point where something exciting would happen and something really good, and she'd be like, man, that's awesome, that's great. And so same word, two different meanings. And so what I invited her to do is to start to notice when she used the word man and to ask herself on the inside, is this like the man that lifts me up or the man that brings me down? And then to start singing the man that lifts me up song every time you say man. And so the word man, like learn to only say the word man in the way of this beautiful song that lifts you up. Instead of singing it down, sing it up. And so that same word that's already habitual can become always something that lifts you by remembering to sing the tune differently. And if you catch yourself singing man down, then man up. Man up. That's not what I mean by man up, but you get what I'm saying. One more example. Kind of similar to that. Another client had, what the fuck is the point of doing this? What the fuck is the point of doing this? And this combines both the man version and the previous one. Because what we did with that one is we said, what the fuck is the point? And not a question like, what the fuck is the point? There's no point in doing this, but what the fuck is the point? Like, as a setup, like, we obviously know we're just asking to set it up so that we can, like, bing, it's like, who are we? We're the best. What the fuck is the point? I'll tell you what the point is. What did she say? The point is to be lit up. Like, what's the fucking point of doing this if nobody's going to pay attention, it's not going to be successful? Well, that's different from what the fuck's the point? I'll tell you what the point is. The point is to be lit up, to have fun, to enjoy life, to be creating, to be creating, to be creating. That's the point. And so this idea that's habitual, what the fuck is the point, can be a tee up, bing! The point is to be lit up, to have fun. Take your habitual, non-useful thoughts, use them as the first line on a song that lifts you. Piggyback in some language that makes that thing that was limiting you through what you thought was an innocuous description, but actually a generative statement. Let that thing now go from not useful to very useful and positive. It's super fast, it's super quick. If you turn the non-limiting thought, if you turn your limiting thoughts into mantras of positive, uplifting statements and you speak them on a recurring basis every single day, give it a week. I promise you, if you speak your new positive mantra, including the habitual non-useful thought in the beginning, every day, multiple times for a week, that it will spontaneously show up for you in place of the non-useful descriptive thought that used to show up habitually, spontaneously everywhere. Anyway, I'm really excited, I guess. I'm skipping all around, but who cares? Because today is the perfect day for you to create who you are. You are loved and you are powerful. And I am loving you simply for your being here. I will talk to you soon.